Before Cleopatra ever became a legend, she made one decision that changed the entire world, and it all began with a single midnight meeting that even history tried to hide. Welcome to House of Cleopatra. If you love ancient power, secret stories, and forgotten empires, subscribe now. A new story rises here every single week, and each one is sharper than the last. Imagine a desert night in Alexandria, the moon hovering above the royal palace like a silent witness. The year is 48 BC, and Egypt is a kingdom consumed by fire, political fire, family fire, and the fire of a young queen fighting to survive. Cleopatra, barely 21 years old, has been driven from her throne by her own brother in a brutal palace coup. She is hiding in the shadows of the desert, her royal status stripped away, her enemies watching every movement. She is a queen without a crown, a ruler without a kingdom, and yet her eyes remain unbroken. For Cleopatra understood one truth before anyone else: the future does not belong to those with armies, it belongs to those with strategy. And tonight, she will make the most daring gamble of her life. Far away across the Mediterranean, a storm is already approaching. Julius Caesar, general of Rome, conqueror of Gaul, the man who claimed he could reshape the world itself, arrives in Alexandria chasing a political enemy. He did not come for Egypt. He did not come for its throne. But destiny has a strange way of guiding giants toward one another, and the meeting of Cleopatra and Caesar would ignite a chain of events that ended one empire and built another. But to understand this moment, you must first understand the woman behind the mess, not the Cleopatra painted by Rome, not the Hollywood seductress, but the strategist, the scholar, the linguist, and the last pharaoh who understood power not as a weapon, but as a language. Cleopatra was not simply beautiful, she was brilliant. She spoke 9 languages, including Greek, Egyptian, Aramaic, Persian, and even the tongues of neighboring tribes. She studied philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and statecraft. While her siblings fought over luxury, she studied the art of ruling. She understood alliances, psychology, trade routes, and diplomacy. She was a queen raised not to be admired, but to survive. And now, exiled and hunted by her own blood, she needed something greater than an army. She needed a symbol. She needed a force that could not be ignored. She needed Rome. And Rome arrived in the form of Julius Caesar, a man 20 years older, in the middle of his own war for control of his republic. Caesar did not come to save a young queen. He came to collect debts Egypt owed Rome. He came seeking neutrality in his fight against Pompey. He came because he was Julius Caesar, ambitious, unstoppable, hungry for power. But fate, as always, had other plans. On the night Cleopatra decided to infiltrate the palace, Alexandria was surrounded by enemies. Every guard, every gate, every corridor was controlled by her brother, Ptolemy XIII. No ordinary entrance would work. And so Cleopatra crafted a plan that blended brilliance with audacity. She asked a loyal servant, Apollodorus, to smuggle her into the palace inside a rolled-up carpet or possibly a linen sack, depending on the historian you believe. But the truth is not in the carpet. The truth is in her courage. As a servant carried the bundle into Caesar's chambers, The Roman general watched with suspicion. But suspicion turned to astonishment when the carpet was unrolled and a young queen emerged like a vision out of mist, dust on her feet, desperation in her heart, but fire in her eyes. It was not seduction. It was strategy. Cleopatra knew she needed an alliance with a man who had the power to restore her throne, and Caesar saw in her not simply a queen, but an opportunity. Egypt was rich. Egypt could be stabilized. Egypt could be aligned with Rome. And Cleopatra was unlike anyone he had ever met. The conversation between them that night is lost to history, but we know the results. By dawn, Caesar had made his decision. He would support Cleopatra's claim to the throne, not because he was enchanted by her beauty, as Roman poets exaggerated, but because he recognized intelligence, ambition, and potential. Julius Caesar was a man who admired strengths. Cleopatra was a woman who possessed it quietly, sharply, dangerously. The next morning, when Cleopatra appeared beside Caesar before the royal council, her brother's advisors were shocked. They expected a fallen queen. What they saw was a reborn one. Caesar stood beside her like a shield forged by Rome. The new alliance between Egypt and Rome ignited outrage, tension, and eventually war. Ptolemy XIII, threatened by this sudden partnership, ordered an assault on the palace. Alexandria became a battlefield. The harbor filled with smoke, ships burning like torches on the Mediterranean waters. For months, Cleopatra and Caesar fought side by side in what history calls the Alexandrian War. Cleopatra understood terrain, supply routes, and political manipulation. Caesar understood military strategy, discipline, and momentum. Together, they were an unstoppable force. And in the midst of war, something deeper formed between them, not just alliance, but partnership. They saw in each other not just power, but equals. And in ancient history, there are very few moments where two rulers of such magnitude meet as equals. Eventually, the tides of war shifted. Caesar's reinforcements arrived. Ptolemy XIII fled, drowned in the Nile, and Cleopatra reclaimed her throne, this time as Queen of Egypt, recognized by Rome itself. And to solidify her rule, she made one more strategic move. She bore Caesar a son, Caesarion, the child destined to unite two worlds. And while Rome whispered rumors, while politicians spread lies about Cleopatra bewitching their general, the truth was far simpler. Caesar respected her mind, and she respected his power. For a moment in history, Egypt and Rome were bound not by treaties, but by two extraordinary human beings. Cleopatra, the queen who refused to die in exile, and Caesar, the man who wanted to reshape the world. They dreamed of an empire that transcended borders, cultures, and bloodlines. But destiny would not allow it to last. When Caesar returned to Rome, he brought Cleopatra with him, not as a concubine, not as a secret lover, but as a queen. Her arrival was scandalous. Rome, a city drenched in pride and politics, feared her influence. Senators whispered of tyranny, empire, monarchy. They feared Cleopatra not because of her nationality, but because she represented something Rome could not tolerate, a powerful woman standing beside a powerful man. And in 44 BC, the knives of conspirators struck. Julius Caesar fell beneath the blades of his enemies, and with him fell the dream of an empire built alongside Cleopatra. The moment she heard the news, Cleopatra's world shattered, not just because she lost a partner, but because she understood what it meant. Rome would turn on her. Caesar was a shield that protected her kingdom, and now that shield was broken. Cleopatra returned to Egypt with her son, choosing strategy over emotion. She would rebuild, she would prepare, she would rise again, and she would form a new alliance with another Roman giant, Mark Antony. But that is a story for another day. Yet one truth remains. The alliance between Cleopatra and Julius Caesar changed the course of history. It restored Egypt's power. It reshaped Rome's politics. It birthed a new vision of empire. And it proved that destiny is not written by the strongest army, but by the bravest decisions. And in that desert night, when Cleopatra stepped out of that carpet and looked into Caesar's eyes, the world shifted. Not because of romance, not because of seduction, but because two minds, sharp as blades and hungry for greatness, recognized each other in a moment that would echo for centuries. Welcome to House of Cleopatra, where legends are not told, they are reborn.